Fractions to decimals using number chips. This is the St. Patrick's Day version. This is a digital lesson that teaches students how to convert a fraction to a decimal. So students are going to be moving these number chips around their slide in order to solve each problem. So it starts out explaining to the students that one of the first steps in converting a fraction to a decimal is that we can convert that fraction to an equivalent fraction with 100 in the denominator. So this is just a practice slide, so a review of what we need to multiply times each of these numbers in order to get 100. So students are going to be moving these chips, so they just click and hold on the edge, and then they can move them into place. We know we have to multiply 50 times 2, 25 times 4, and so on. And every number is going to be used on every slide. The next slide, students are going to be converting their fractions to equivalent fractions. So we're going to look at this first one, and we're going to know we have to multiply 50 times 2. So if we multiply the denominator times 2, we have to also multiply the numerator times 2, and that will give us 1800s. This may be a review for your students, but it's necessary in order to move to the next step. And if they're struggling and they get to the end of the slide and the numbers aren't working, they know they've made an error somewhere and they need to go back and check. The next slide is a review of place value. So students have to read the instructions. They're to place their 4 in the ones place, their 2 in the tenths place, which would put it to the right of the decimal point, 6 in the hundreds place, and so on. So every number will be used. And if students have trouble remembering their place value, they can just use the process of elimination to figure out those answers. Now on the next slide, it explains if they have a fraction with 100 in the denominator, and they want to convert it to a decimal, one way to look at this is that in the numerator, the number on the far right will go in the hundreds place. So 49 hundredths, we know that 9 will go here in the hundredths place. The 4 is going to go next to it, and then this number is going to be a 0. 13 hundredths, we know the 3 is going to go in the hundredths place, and then just place the 1 to the left of it. This number will be a 0. And then 180 hundredths, that 0 will be in the hundreds place. And if we place the other two numbers, we get 1 in 80 hundredths. So students have a couple slides where they're going to practice that. So here, the 2 will go in the hundreds place and the 7. The next slide, the 1 will go in the hundreds place. And on this one, it will be the 8. So they need to be careful on this one. The 8 goes in the hundreds place. The other two numbers are zeros. Students tend to want to put the 8 here, or 8 100ths. And the next slide, same thing. 5 goes in the hundreds place, and 5 again goes in the hundreds place. Hundredths. Now, students are going to be changing these fractions to equivalent fractions and then to decimals. So here we know we have to multiply 2 times 50 to get 100. And that means we have to multiply 1 times 50, which will give us 50. Once we have 50 hundredths, then we can convert it to a decimal. Same thing here. And a little bit more practice. Now, sometimes we can't directly convert that denominator to 100. We may need to simplify the fraction first. So if we simplify 12 40ths, we divide numerator and denominator by 4, we're going to get 3 tenths. Then we can multiply numerator and denominator times 10, and we get 30 hundredths, which we can go ahead and convert to a decimal. So simplifying first, and then converting it to an equivalent fraction. Now, it's not always possible to convert a fraction to an equivalent fraction with 100 in the denominator. In that case, we have to use long division. So here we simplified, but we still can't convert it to 100. So here they're going to be using the number chips to do the long division. This decimal point's going to go straight up. So we've got 1 divided by 8. These numbers are going to be zeros. So this is a good review of long division. 8 goes into 10 one time. 8 times 1 is 8. Subtract, I get 2. Bring down a 0. 8 goes into 20 two times, which would be 16. And again, they're going to use every single number. Subtract, they get 4, bring down a 0, and then 8 goes into 40 evenly. So they'll get an answer of 125 thousandths. So they're going to do the same thing on the next couple of slides, a couple more long division. The last one has a repeating decimal. So the sixes are going to repeat. And so students are going to use this bar and they're going to move it to show the repeating decimal. So it ends with some decimals vocabulary, terminating, non-terminating, and repeating. And that is our St. Patrick's Day version of fractions to decimals.